Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. Okay, there we go. We are ready to start. Hare Krishna, devotees, welcome to our 10th evening program of Sri Isopanisad for Bhakti Shastri. Thank you very much for coming. When we finish this program in an hour, then we will be halfway through, although we will have only got to the end of Mantra 3. Anyway, that's how the program is organized. So, then there'll be just another 2 weeks, further 2 weeks to go. But thank you very much for taking part. We really appreciate it tremendously. Let us begin with our prayers. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharne Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pastyatyadesh Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivas Adi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vanchakalpacharubhyascha kripa sindhu bhyevacha, Paditanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. All right, devotees, so welcome. Thank you very much. We're very happy to have your company, even though it's only virtual. Last night we finished Mantra 2 about how if you live according to the Ishavasya system, how nice life is, even in the material world. And therefore, as the verse said, if you live according to the Ishavasya system, recognizing that everything's owned and controlled by the Lord and not by you or anyone else other than the Lord, and that everybody has their quota. So therefore, in terms of your personal situation, that you must be careful not to take things which belong to others, things which are not your quota. It really is very important. So now we're moving on to Mantra 3. We read Mantra 3 at the end last night, and it's about a completely different type of person in a completely different type of situation. The staunch non-devotee, yes, like that. And the unfortunate situations they get into. And of course, contrasted with the fortunate situations of the devotees and those who follow the Ishavasya system. So, all right, let us now read Mantra 3. Asurya namate loka, andena tamasavrita, tams te pretya bigachanti, yeke chatma hano jana. Translation: the killer of the soul, whoever he may be, must enter into the planets known as the worlds of the faithless, full of darkness and ignorance. That's heavy, isn't it? The killer of the soul, whoever the person may be. They get put in just horrible, terrible situations. All right, so this is what we're focusing on this evening, this mantra 3 and the purport. There are 6 paragraphs to this purport. So let's start going through. So in the first paragraph, Srila Prabhupada distinguishes between the human form of life, or not just human form, but the human way of life, the real human way of life, and the way of life, the ways of life of the animals. They're very different. They're very different. And so Prabhupada goes on to point out that those who are following the Ishavasya system, really, or as Prabhupada puts it, those people who are cognizant of the responsibilities of the human form of life, because that's the difference between human and animal. The human form of life, there are responsibilities. Prabhupada says, heavy responsibilities. So those who know what those responsibilities are and who work in that spirit, in other words, we can take it, they're following the Ishavasya system. So they are called Suras, or godly people. And those who are neglectful of those responsibilities, neglectful, either because they just don't care, like Ravana. We're told that Ravana, he was highly educated in Shastra. His father was the Brahmin Vishrava, some big Brahmin. So Ravana was well educated in scripture and all these things, and including how people can be elevated to higher planets through performing sacrifice and pious activities and so on. But Ravana felt that he couldn't be bothered. Therefore, he decided that seeing the moon is said to be a heavenly planet, he decided he would just build a staircase and walk there. So that's the demoniac mentality, that a person is aware, but they don't care. But then, as Prabhupada points out, there's a second category who are not suras. They're not godly people. There's a second category. This first category, they know, but they don't care. The second category, they just don't know, and they don't care, usually. Yeah. And they're called Asuras, which we've mentioned before over the last few days. If you have a noun, and you put a Sanskrit noun, and you put the letter A in front, then it becomes not that. Just like in Bhagavad-Gita, I think it's the 8th chapter, Lord Krishna is talking about the material world, and he refers to it as Vyakt avyakta. Vyakt avyakta. Vyakt means manifest. Avyakt means unmanifest. That's the nature of this material world. Sometimes it's here like now. Sometimes it gets destroyed. All the planets are destroyed. Universes are destroyed. And we all go into the body of Mahavishnu. So that means that the material creation has become avyakta, unmanifest. But then after however long, when Mahavishnu breathes out again and he glances over the dormant material nature, which has just been in sort of suspended animation since the last distraction, so then the material world becomes vyakta again. Having been avyakta, it becomes vyakta. Okay, so here we have the suras, the godly people, who understand what should be done and what shouldn't be done, who understand the Ishavasya principle and who apply it. So they're suras. And then you've got these other categories. I mean, they're just two subcategories. The people who may know about these things but don't care, and the people who don't know and generally they don't care. They are asuras. So between the suras, the godly people, the pious people, the good people, which includes the devotees, between them and the asuras, the demons, then that's all you get in the material world. Srila Prabhupada makes that point, that throughout the universe, there are only these two types of human beings. And Srila Prabhupada refers to, it's actually a very famous verse from Rig Veda. Om tad Vishnu paramam padam tata pasyanti surayo deviva chakshuratatam tad vipraso vipanyavo jagrivamsa samindate Vishnu yat paramam padam. Famous, very famous Rig Veda verse, which says, Prabhupada's just paraphrasing, that the suras, the godly people, they always aim at the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. Paramam padam. Pada, of course, means feet. It also means abode. And paramam, of course, is supreme. So paramam padam can mean the supreme abode or the supreme feet of the Lord, which are also the supreme abode. And their ways are as illuminated as the path of the sun. And on to paragraph 2. So, we've read about intelligent people in Isopanisad. And in the context of Isopanisad, intelligent people, it has a specific meaning. And the idea is that intelligent people, they're the ones who know about the Ishavasya system. And as Prabhupada states here, not only do they know about the Ishavasya system in terms of the Lord's position and quotas, but they also know that we're all eternal spirit souls. Naturally, they know that. Yes. So these intelligent people who understand the Ishavasya system, understand we're all eternal spirit souls, they also understand that, as Prabhupada says here, and Prabhupada says they must always remember, it's important to be mindful of this, that a spirit soul gets a human body after going through all other types of bodies for many millions of years, for a long time. It's not, as some people think, it's not that, some people who accept reincarnation, they think that when you come to the human form, that's it. You can't go down again. Of course, we know from Bhagavad-Gita, we know from what Srila Prabhupada has been saying in Isopanisad, that you can definitely go down again. You can go right out of the human form of life into animal species, or even less than animal species, cockroach, or some sort of little unicellular little bacteria or something. So the intelligent person in the context of Isopanisad is understanding these different things, and therefore, having achieved the human form of life, is extremely careful and very responsible not to get distracted into just the materialistic way of life, enjoying the senses without any serious idea of God consciousness. Yeah. So, and now Prabhupada explores this idea a little further, that the material world is compared to an ocean, and the human body is like a good boat which can cross the ocean, even designed especially to cross the ocean. If you're going to cross an ocean, you got to have a suitable boat, because that ocean, that's quite a place. If your boat is not up to it, then you will get wrecked in the middle of the ocean of material existence, and that will just be too bad. So that the human body is compared to a solid boat, a good boat, which is capable of crossing the ocean. And the Vedic literatures and the great devotees, the Acharyas, are compared to expert boatmen who know how to take the boat through the ocean. Because having come from a boating background myself, I can tell you got to watch out if you're driving a boat on the ocean. You can get into trouble pretty easily. Yeah. So then further, the facilities of the human body are like favorable breezes that help the boat pass very nicely through the ocean under the direction of the boatmen, because there's a team. It's teamwork, cooperation. The Vedic scriptures and the Acharyas, the advanced devotees. So Prabhupada concludes the paragraph by saying that if, despite all these ideal facilities, someone does not use this life for self-realization, then what? Then this person, Prabhupada says, he must be considered Atmaha, or killer of the soul. This is the person who the verse was particularly talking about. Atma, of course, is the soul, and ha means to kill. Yes. And Prabhupada says that Isopanisad warns in clear terms that the killer of the soul is destined to enter into the darkest region of ignorance, to suffer perpetually. And you know this word perpetual, it doesn't necessarily just mean a long time. It can mean, perpetual means actually an indefinite period of time. It's indefinite. It's not just a long time, but there's no specific end to it. It may end, but there's no specific end to it. So now devotees, let's have a look here what to do. Okay. We have a special question here, devotees, based on this verse. Let me just repeat the verse again. The killer of the soul, whoever he may be, must enter into the planets known as the worlds of the faithless, full of darkness and ignorance. Okay, so now our question is going to be a question based on a Srimad Bhagavatam verse, as we generally do. At least a verse from some great scripture, and often the Bhagavatam. This is now from the 4th canto, chapter 31, verse 1, purport. 4:31, 1, purport. And there, Srila Prabhupada says, giving up a comfortable home life is absolutely necessary for human beings, and is advised by Prahlad Maharaj. Hitvatma patam griham andakupam. To finish the materialistic way of life, one should leave his so-called comfortable home life, which is simply a means for killing the soul. Andakupam, is mentioned here, Sanskrit term. Andakupam means a bottomless well, a blind well, literally a blind well, which means, covered up, you may not see it until you fall into it, but it's really deep. And once you've fallen in, how are you going to get out? Who knows? Okay, so the question is that in a purport, this purport here, which we just mentioned, about killing the soul. Prabhupada says, one has to finish one's materialistic way of life and what? As this is simply a means for killing the soul. So one has to finish their materialistic way of life and do what? As not doing that is simply a means for killing the soul. What do you think? What should one should finish one's materialistic way of life and do what? Prabhupada says, one should leave his so-called comfortable home life. Hare Krishna. Yes, that's the answer. Finish your materialistic life and leave your so-called comfortable home life. Okay, very good. So now on to paragraph 3. We're going through this whole verse tonight. So Srila Prabhupada now begins by talking about the animals, comparing the animals to humans. There are pigs, dogs, camels, asses, etc. And they are just as concerned about how, their economic necessities, Prabhupada says. Economic necessities, or their economic necessities are just as important to them as ours are to us. Of course, they don't exactly have economic necessities, but still, they're as concerned about how is their life. Are things nice? Are the children all right? And all this. As humans are, basically, the animals have the same feelings about their situations in life as we do, and solving their problems. How will they get food? From where? How will they protect themselves? And these different things. So they solve those problems. We solve those problems also. We have a place to live, we have clothes, we have prasadam, we have different things for carrying on our lives. And the animals also, they get food. Oftentimes they have some territory, some sort of place where they stay kind of thing. And they have arrangements for protecting themselves from attack, like us. But their solutions to those problems are, Prabhupada says, they're solved only under nasty and unpleasant conditions. Yeah, that's true. In many cases, at least the carnivorous animals, they have to chase after other animals. They can't go to the supermarket and buy whatever they want to eat. They got to chase after some other animal and kill the animal and eat the animal's body just, on the spot. Oh, Krishna. It's really crude. It's just totally crude and rough. Yes. So, but the human being has much better facilities. Much better facilities. And how is that? Well, at least as Prabhupada explains it here, because the human form of life is more important and valuable than the animal's life. And Prabhupada raises the question, why is it that humans get better lives than the animals? But now then he goes into the explanation, and it's very nice. Why is a highly placed government servant given better facilities for living than an ordinary clerk or some laborer or someone? And the answer is because the highly placed officer has higher level duties to carry out, much greater responsibilities than just the laborer who may just dig holes. So similarly, in a general sense, the duties of the humans are higher than those of the animals, who, they're just involved in a very simplistic way of life of eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. So, yeah. So that's the case. That's the situation. Because we as humans have higher responsibilities. And ultimately, what does that mean? we have the responsibility of awakening our Krishna consciousness. That's our ultimate responsibility. So because we have higher responsibilities, and particularly that one, but unfortunately, the current day human society, well, they're just not doing that. They're essentially focused on the Asura way of life. How to eat, drink, and be merry, eat, sleep, mate, and defend. And that's about it. And at best, they may possibly have some religious activity, but generally in their religious activity, they only pray to God to give us better facilities for eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. Generally speaking, it's basically like that. So the animals are essentially involved in getting enough to eat. But the humans in general now, who are not devotees, who are not following Ishavasya, they're not really any better. They're just doing the same things in more sophisticated ways. Instead of killing another animal to eat, they go to the supermarket. Well, they don't just go to the supermarket, they work to get money, and then they go to the supermarket. Or like the other animals who are vegetarian, they eat the grass. Those vegetarian animals do not know how to make a nice sabji or some vegetarian foodstuffs, and certainly they don't know how to offer that to the Lord. Yes. So Prabhupada makes the point then that when we approach such a person, such an asura actually, a killer of the soul, who doesn't understand that he's an eternal spirit soul, who doesn't understand that the goal of life is to reawaken our forgotten relationship with the Lord, but who is entangled in all sorts of materialistic activities. If we approach such a person and try to present self-realization, Krishna consciousness to that person, then Prabhupada says the person will reply that, no time. I've got to work to get money to eat. So I've got no time for your self-realization. Yeah, that's so common. No time. Yeah, but as Prabhupada concludes the paragraph, the laws of nature are so cruel, however, that despite his denunciation of the need for self-realization, and despite his eagerness to work hard to fill his stomach, he's always threatened by unemployment. Just look at this whole COVID situation. So many people didn't work for months and months. So the rich people were fine. That's not a problem for them. The rich people became richer. But the ordinary people who are just working to get money just to maintain immediately at that time, then they don't want self-realization, but they're always threatened by unemployment or COVID. How are we going to make ends meet? And we go on now to paragraph 4, a shorter paragraph. So again, Prabhupada emphasizes, what the intelligent people. One of the number of things that these intelligent people who are following Ishavasya, that they understand. And that is that we're given this human form of life not just to work like asses, swine, and dogs, but to attain the highest perfection, to re-enter our relationship with Krishna. But the problem is that if you're an Asura, if you are an Atmaha, killer of the soul, and you don't care for self-realization, then the modes of nature force you to work hard. The modes of nature, the laws of nature, even though you may not want to. Today's Friday, people have finished the week. I'm sure many of the workers, when they left the factory or office or wherever they're working, many of them were thinking, oh, how nice. The work week is finished. Yeah. But the thing is that because of different things, one point is, this is an important point, that because people are not interested in simple living and high thinking, of course, but in this particular case, simple living, because people want to have a high life with as much facility as possible, because they got so many material desires. Therefore, the people have to work very hard. If you just live a very simple life, then you don't have to work very hard. But if you want more of this and better of that and all that sort of thing, then you have to work hard. And Prabhupada says that therefore people have been forced to work hard like the asses and bullocks that pull carts. And actually some people actually pull carts. Calcutta, maybe other places, I don't know, but I've seen, of course, Calcutta. People are pulling the cart and you are sitting in it. So these people, they work like dogs, like animals, and they don't care for a proper way of life. They just try to enjoy sense gratification. Therefore, they get involved in sinful activity on a very regular basis. And what happens to them? Well, as Prabhupada concludes the paragraph, if a man fails to discharge his duties as a human being, he's forced to transmigrate to the Asura planets and take birth in degraded species of life to work hard in ignorance and darkness. Yeah, the lower planets, they'll still have to work hard, but the situation will be much worse, much worse. There's the book Garuda Purana. I've got a copy somewhere, on my computer actually. Maybe I should read some of the things that it says there about what happens to sinful people. But I tell you what, it's bad. It's a great, horrible disaster. So let's carry on, paragraph 5. Now here, it's interesting. This is now, in fact, we discussed this to some degree last night, but we'll discuss it again now. We'll discuss it again now. There are some people who, devotees, or at least Prabhupada doesn't exactly say devotees, but he talks about people who enter upon the path of self-realization of some sort. So they take up some spiritual process. but for one reason or another, they cannot complete it. Either they die untimely, or they fall down, some unfortunate complication arises in their life. So they don't complete the process. This is discussed in Bhagavad-Gita, that by Krishna's mercy, they're given a chance to take birth in a family of Brahmins or Vaishyas, pious people. Let me just read the verses Prabhupada refers to. Bhagavad-Gita chapter 6, verses 41 to 43. Okay, 41. The unsuccessful yogi, after many, many years of enjoyment on the planets of the pious living entities, is born into a family of righteous people or into a family of rich aristocracy. 42. Or, if unsuccessful, after a long practice of yoga, so that what we just read in 41 is talking about a yogi who did not practice for so long. But now we're going to hear about a yogi who was unsuccessful, but after a long practice of yoga, he takes his birth in a family of transcendentalists who are surely great in wisdom. Certainly, such a birth is rare in this world. And 43, on taking such a birth, he revives the divine consciousness of his previous life, and he again tries to make progress in order to achieve complete success. Yeah, okay. So, by Krishna's mercy, due to his or her sincere efforts from the previous life, they get a good chance in the next life. Of course, as we mentioned, Prabhupada last night, Prabhupada's one son became a demon. Even Advaita Acharya, of his 6 sons, 3 became Mayavadis and committed offenses against Lord Chaitanya, actually. So in other words, even if you get such a situation in your next life, it's not guaranteed. It's definitely not guaranteed. Don't take it like that. Yes, but by Krishna's mercy, facility will be there. So Prabhupada makes an interesting point, in more or less almost in the middle of the purport. If even a fallen candidate is given a chance to take birth in a respectable and noble family, one can hardly imagine the status of one who has achieved success. Wow, that's amazing, isn't it? One who has actually completed the course and come to the platform of perfection in pure devotional service, in pure Krishna consciousness. So, but anyway, as usual, Prabhupada, as the purport goes on, Prabhupada also talks about those who are too materialistic, too attached, and they don't understand what to do, how to progress spiritually, or maybe, as we mentioned, maybe they do understand, but they just don't care to make the effort to develop spiritually. So those, yes, they don't even make an attempt. They want to be covered by illusion. And what happens to them? They are atmaha. They must enter into the darkest regions of hell, as confirmed throughout the Vedic literature. Even sometimes Prabhupada makes the point these people try to make a show of being very religious, but actually their real aim is material progress. Yeah, we've seen enough of that sort of person. So, Bhagavad-Gita, chapter 16, verses 17 and 18, Prabhupada says, these verses rebuke such men by calling them Atma Sambhavata. Okay. Yeah. Well, let's just, before we go further, let us just read chapter 16, verses 17 and 18, where these people, these Atmaha people, killers of the soul, these Asuras, where they get rebuked by Lord Krishna. So verse 17, self-complacent and always impudent, deluded by wealth and false prestige, they sometimes proudly perform sacrifices in name only, without following any rules or regulations. 18. Bewildered by false ego, strength, pride, lust, and anger, the demons become envious of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is situated in their own bodies and in the bodies of others, and they blaspheme against the real religion. That's just so heavy. Yeah. But, you get these people. Like, I don't want to mention the name of the organization, but they're, fairly prominent. In India, they're a very prominent Hindu organization. And their program is that everyone, every family, even every day if possible, should perform a fire sacrifice. Right? Huh? Well, no, just any family. They should just perform a fire yajna. But without the proper standards. Without the proper standards. And I wasn't going to say. Yes, that's right. It's the Arya Samaj. I'm sorry. Yeah, everyone must do fire sacrifice. But it's just pretentious. They don't perform the sacrifice properly. It's pretentious, show-off type of religion. And then, so then we were reading just the last part of paragraph number 5, that this this verse, it's actually verse number 17 of these two from chapter 16 that we just read, verses 17 and 18. It's verse 17 which refers to these people as Atma Sambhavita, self-complacent, meaning that they're considered great only on the strength of deception and are empowered by the votes of the ignorant and by their own material wealth. Srila Prabhupada, sometimes he gets so heavy. Wow. Chastises so heavily. Great only on the strength of deception. Oh, Krishna. Empowered by the votes of the ignorant. Oh, Hare Rama. And empowered by their own material wealth. Ah, Krishna, Krishna. So such asuras, devoid of self-realization and knowledge of Ishavasya, the Lord's universal proprietorship, are certain to enter into the darkest regions of ignorance. We should note that. Self-complacent. Self-complacent in principle means that, like self-satisfied, I'm fine, I have no problem, I'm doing well, just don't bother me. Whereas actually, he is not doing fine at all. He's doing very badly. He's doing horribly. Yes, he's really doing in the most horrible, shocking way. And so Prabhupada says, such asuras, devoid of self-realization and knowledge of Ishavasya, the Lord's universal proprietorship, are certain to enter into the darkest regions. There are many candidates for the darkest regions, I tell you what. Nowadays, there's plenty, no shortage. All right, so Srila Prabhupada then concludes the purport. I'll just read the last. It's just one sentence, actually. The conclusion is that as human beings, we are meant not simply for solving economic problems on a tottering platform, but for solving all the problems of the material life into which we're being placed by the laws of nature. Yeah, so solving the economic problems and other problems, different types of problems in the material world, which Prabhupada says, problems on a tottering platform. It's very unsteady, unstable, and at any point, it could all collapse. Okay, so now just before we conclude, I want to read a paragraph. It'll just take 2 minutes or 1 minute maybe. It's from a class by Srila Prabhupada on the invocation, of Isopanisad. Prabhupada giving a class in Los Angeles in 1970. So just listen to this. Prabhupada says, Atmaha, the modern civilization is like that. It is a killing civilization. Atmaha, Atma Hanojana. All these people are killing themselves because they do not know what life is, simply living like an animal. An animal does not know what life is, but is simply under the laws of nature. But when you get this human form of life, there is responsibility. Here is a chance for you to become Krishna conscious and solve all the problems of life. If not, you go into the cycle of birth and death again, through 8,400,000 species. It will take many, many millions of years again to come back to the human form. Just like we see the sunshine again in the morning after 12 hours, 24 hours. Everything is a process. So if you lose this opportunity of elevating yourself, then again you come through the process. Nature's law is very strong. Daivihiyesha gunamai. The sooner you surrender to Krishna, Mameva ye prapadyante mayametam tarantite, such a person is able to overcome this process of material nature. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Thank you for the association. Haribol, Jai Maharaj.
We're going to try that bad trick in put the snack on.
Oh, yeah, okay. Okay. It's in there somewhere. Just have a look, open up that cabinet.
Is that
Just pull it and stick your hand in.
the top middle?
It's probably in the middle more, but it could be anywhere. It's definitely there somewhere. Okay, Hare Krishna devotees, Haribol.